Check it out. The LA Forum, previous home to the Los Angeles Lakers, LA Kings, other teams. Also, construction site for the new Los Angeles Stadium. Future home to the Rams. Reason I point all this out, to let you know where we are. We've been here once before. We are at Hollywood Park Casino. Fabulous Inglewood, California. Back to business today. I have a bunch of things in mind that I want to do with you guys here in Los Angeles, but you see these clouds? It makes it a little bit difficult to do things outdoors. Can't go to the beach, can't go hiking. Options are limited, but hey, maybe that's for the best. It's time to just get back after it. Back on the grind today. Gonna get back in the 5-10 game. Don't know what the minimum is, but there's no max. So I'll be into the 5-10 game. Gonna buy in for $2,000. Usual drill. Let's go. All right, so we're actually playing 5-10 mandatory $20 straddle. Technically not mandatory, but everyone's straddling and it's always on the button. So 5-10 20, I'm on the button. The cutoff limps in and I raise it up with Jack 10 offsuit. The cutoff calls. So we go heads up. Flop is ace, Jack 5, rainbow. Cutoff checks and second pair, showdown value, I check it back. Turn is the 10 of hearts, which brings a backdoor flush draw, giving us 2 pair. He bets out for 80. Could consider a raise. His sizing isn't very big, so it doesn't feel super strong. But I just decided to flat call. River's the 3 of hearts, so the backdoor flush draw comes in. This time he checks it, so it really feels like he's pretty weak, pretty marginal holding. I decided to try and target that range and make a small bet. I bet $100. He thinks for a little bit, but he lets it go. Playing 5-handed in this hand, button straddle on. The 2 blinds limp in. Action starts to the left of the button when the straddle is on. So the 2 blinds, they limp in and we look down at pocket 8s. I decided to raise it up and make it $100 to go from the cutoff. It folds back to the small blind who calls and the big blind calls as well. So 3 ways to this flop. Flop is queen 7-6 with 2 hearts. Action checks to me, and I think it's a reasonable decision to bet here. There's a decent number of holdings that I think we can get called by from 2 players. Flush draws, straight draws, smaller pairs. I just decided to check it though because the small blind in particular, he's rather bet happy, rather raise happy player, rather tricky. So I decided to check it back and keep the pot small for now. Turns an offsuit ace. They check to me. I just decide to check it back again. River is a brick, checks to me, and I just check it down. Small blind announces king high. Big blind doesn't show, and I show my hand, and it's good. So in this hand, I have the button straddle, and the cutoff limps in. We look down at 6-7 offsuit, and just decide to check it back and take a flop. Flop is ace 5-3 rainbow. Cutoff checks to us. We do have a gut shot, so we have some equity and no showdown value whatsoever. So a bet is reasonable, but I feel like with the board being ace high, I feel like what we're repping with a bet is a little bit limited. So I just go ahead and check it back. Turn is another ace. He checks, I check. River's an offsuit 10. This time he puts out a bet and I flip my cards up and say, can you beat it? And I muck. He says he can and shows me ace king. So pretty funny little situation there. Just obviously he was never going anywhere, and ace king good. So in this hand, the under the gun player limps, and we look down at 10-8 of clubs. Decide to put in the isolation raise, and I make it 40 to go. Player on my direct left calls, and the limper calls as well. So 3 ways this time. Flop is queen 9-6 rainbow. So we flop a double gutter and a backdoor flush draw. The limper checks, and with decent equity, no showdown value, I put in a C bet. I bet 80. The caller, the player to my left, thinks for a bit, and he puts in a raise. He makes it 275 to go. The limper folds. It's possible that my opponent could have a top pair type hand and is potentially overvaluing that type of a hand. And in that case, if we did put in a raise, then maybe we could get our opponent off of that type of a hand. So between not wanting to get into an all-in situation here right away, and the fact that our hand might be a little bit disguised, especially with the 7. If a 7 comes on the turn, it's going to be pretty tough for our opponent to put us on a straight, I would think. So I go for the flat call, head to a turn card. Turn is a pretty bad card. Turn is another 6, pairs the board. So I check and my opponent checks back. The river is a brick, so we have pretty close to the bottom of our range. Obviously no showdown value. Normally that would mean we should be betting. But the fact that he raised us on the flop and then checked back when the board paired, I feel like he could be trapping some percentage of the time. And I don't know how often we're gonna be repping a credible hand here that we will be able to tell a story with and push him off. So I just decided to check, and my opponent checks back as well, and surprisingly he turns over Queen 9. So we flop top 2, and not only did he check it back and immediately turn it over, he also said he was calling a bet should I have decided to bet the river there. So I think I'm happy with my line there. Not really a run out that I am too eager to bet on the river, but again, it's the bottom of my range, so it can never be too bad. But I don't know, I guess considering his exact hand, glad I didn't lose more. So as the night has been going on, pretty card dead, not making too many hands, actually really card dead. For example, a hand like this, straddle is on again, there's a limp, and I looked down at King Queen of Spades, which to me looks like not just 40% of a royal, it looks like a complete royal flush to me at this point. Just super card dead. Obviously a raising hand here, so I raise it up to 90. There's a call to my left and the limper calls as well. So 3 ways to this flop. Flop comes 9, 8, 2, all clubs. Right color, wrong suit. The limper checks, I check, checks around. Turn is an offsuit 4, action checks around. River is another 9, action checks around. The caller shows ace deuce of spades, flops bottom pair, and it's good. Lots of situations like this just happening over and over. Either that or just not a playable hand at all. So several hours of no hands, no love, just trying to stay patient. So we are 7 or 8 handed, and finally I looked down at a pretty premium hand. I looked down at pocket queens from early position, raised it up to 35. The player on my direct left re-raises, puts in a 3-bet to 135. Folds back to me. This player, he plays a decent number of hands, but he doesn't get too 3-bet happy, I guess you could say. Not putting in too many re-raises before the flop. Playing a fairly wide range, a fairly wide calling range pre-flop, but not a very wide 3-bet range. So between that and being in early position with all this action, and being somewhere around 15 to 2,000 effective, not sure I'm looking to put in a 4-bet and face a 5-bet and then have to make a decision as to whether to go with it or not. Could be a tricky situation. So I just put in a flat call. I make the flat call. We go heads up to a flop. Flop comes 8-6-5 with 2 hearts. Shouldn't change too much, I wouldn't think. Shouldn't connect with him too much, so we are either still ahead or still behind, I would think. So I check, and my opponent bets 160. One of those situations where I think I only get worse to fold with a raise, so I just call. It's starting to become apparent that I'm getting pretty good at turning favorable queens, especially the offsuit variety. That's what the turn is. I check it over to him again. I expect him to continue with his good hands, but this time he checks. So one of those spots, once again, a little bit disappointing. Not getting the value once I turn the beautiful offsuit queen. River is an interesting card. River is an offsuit king. I think it's a really good card for us because a lot of the time, the majority of the time, it will either connect with him or he can use it as a bluff card. So with that reasoning in mind, expecting him to be betting the king pretty frequently, I decided to check it over to him, and he puts out a bet. He puts a pretty sizable bet too. He bets $500. So there will be some percentage of the time where he decided to pot control with pocket kings and just re-got there, which would be a pretty sick scenario. The rest of the time, I expect him to have aces, ace king, some sort of a bluff, and that's about it. Putting in a flat call just feels a little bit too scared. Not enough combos, I don't think, of pocket kings to warrant a flat call, especially when, if we put in a raise, it could potentially be perceived as a missed draw, whether that's a flush draw, straight draw, or some combination of the two. So with that in mind, I decide to go for the maximum and jam all in, and it's about 1,500 effective, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood. My opponent goes into the tank, so that's actually really good news, of course. We fade the snap call. We don't get the snap call, which means he doesn't have pocket kings, so clearly have the best hand here. So after thinking for a little while, my opponent makes the call and we roll it over. Very good news. He shows us ace king. We're gonna take down a pretty sizable pot here finally, after many hours of garbage hands, lots of folding, lots of whiffing, lots of not connecting. Finally connect in a big way, and our opponent connects as well. So pretty sweet situation. The river worked out. The river play worked out. Got a great run out for our hand, and taking down, like I said, pretty nice pot here. Very good news, ladies and gentlemen. We've set a new high water mark. Pretty good streak we're on here. Tonight, we book a win of $3,480. Pretty good session, to say the least. I'm really happy with the fact that I stayed pretty patient. I was literally card dead for somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 hours. I think that's something to, I mean, I'm not like overly proud of myself or whatever, but I think that's the type of thing to be more proud of when you are extremely card dead for a really long time and then you end up booking a pretty good win. It's easy, it's always easy when you are just running super hot, you're in God mode and just nailing flop after flop, or you just sit down and you crush for like an hour or 2 hours and you rack up, you know, a big win. Whatever your stakes are, those are the easy times. And as we all know, poker is easy sometimes and hard sometimes. So when it's hard, when it's not going swimmingly as you might like it, and you're able to just maintain, that's the time when your skills come into play, and you know, you pick up that skill set of staying patient and not tilting. So yeah, that's something to be a little bit proud of, worth recognizing, I think. But you know the drill. It's a lot of this, you know? So now we're on one of these. We're on one of these. We were on one of these for a while. Now we're on one of these. Back and forth we go. I feel a little guilty for just not showing you guys around California, more so because there's still some things that I want to share with you guys, particularly here in Los Angeles. I lived here for 4.5 years, and I got some spots. I want to take you to, but the combination of the weather and just wanting to stay on the grind, haven't been getting out there. It's just been all business for the most part. Can't even fly the drone here. The LAX flight path pretty much goes right over this casino. No drone action from here, but this is a really nice casino. I said it last time. I highly recommend this this venue if you happen to be in the LA area. Come give HPC a visit. All right, wrapping up the session. It's 6 in the morning at the moment. That sleep schedule thing that I try and maintain, not happening, but feels worth it when you have nights like this.